We take a look at our current exchange rates that are on the market, and starting it off strong, we get to see how the United States dollar is buying at 24 kwacha 15 ngwe and selling at 24 kwacha 55 ngwe. The Great British Pound is buying at 32 kwacha 89 ngwe and selling at 32 kwacha 98 ngwe. The Euro is buying at 28 kwacha and selling at 28 kwacha 6 ngwe. The South African Rand is buying at 1 kwacha 34 ngwe and selling at 1 kwacha 35 ngwe. We take a look at some of the stories that are making headlines in the world of business, as we see on a local front that the Ministry of Finance and National Planning has released 15.8 billion kwacha to finance public service delivery, of which 5.5 billion kwacha went to debt servicing. In a statement released by the Minister of Finance, 2.8 billion kwacha went to the domestic debt, 2.6 kwacha went to the external debt, while 80.7 million kwacha toward dismantling arrears of various suppliers of goods and services. In May 2025, the Ministry of Finance and National Planning released these finance or public service finance delivery, and on one moment, 1.8 billion kwacha went to transfers, subsidies, and social benefits. 1.9 billion kwacha to the implementation of various developmental programs and general operations. 1.3 billion kwacha was spent on the capital expenditure, 5.3 billion kwacha for the public service wage bill, and 5.5 billion kwacha was spent on debt. And in more stories that are making headlines in the world of business, we're seeing how the Zambia Consumer Association ZACA says former Bloomberg editor-in-chief and co-founder Matthew Winkler's presentation on Zambia macroeconomic growth is commendable and reflects progress in sectors such as mining, energy, and agriculture. However, ZACA Executive Secretary Juga Sakala says GDP growth alone does not automatically translate into reduced prices of essential commodities and for the average citizen. Now, in more, we see how recently Winkler noted that Zambia was poised to lead Africa with the fastest improving growing domestic product since 2018. Speaking at the Africa Business Media Innovators 2025 meeting in Livingston, Winkler attributed the growth mostly to the attainment of debt restructuring, which reduces Zambia's risk profile. However, Mr. Sakala observed that GDP growth has not eased the cost of living for any other regular citizen. In some international stories, we see how the Israel-Iran conflict could actually affect the energy prices. Now, the price of oil in particular has surged, but on the weekend, a missile and drone strikes between the two countries will cost a crude oil has fallen back. Nevertheless, oil prices are $10 higher than they were a month ago, and where renewed fears increased energy costs should make everything from petrol to food to holidays becoming even more expensive. What happens after Russia invaded Ukraine 3 years ago, affecting people's lives around the globe? How much have oil prices risen? And we see how the attacks prompted in the instant reaction on the markets. Brent crude, the main international benchmark, rose over $78 a barrel on Friday. Since then, it has fallen back to about $74.50, but is still $10 higher than it was in the last month. On the prices of more, the price of oil rises and has fallen in the time in response in the year earlier, and it is also well below the peak seen in 2022 following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, when it sparkled up to nearly $130 per barrel. So petrol and other prices, will they go up? That's the question. Now, when more expensive energy should also feed through the higher prices for almost everything from farming to manufacturing. When it comes to food, higher energy costs can lead to higher prices on the shelf in many ways, and it can make more expensive to run machinery, to transport, to produce, to even how a package is processed for food. Now, there will be, or if this will happen in the energy prices stay high for a substantial period, a rough rule of the thumb is a $10 rise on the oil price would add about 7 to the liters at the price of the pump. Now, this is not only on the oil story as it is being cautioned. Now, will they continue to rise, or maybe we'll see as this progresses, as Iran and Israel are still in this conflict? It all still will affect the price of oil on the market. These are some of the stories that we had for you on the Business Snapshot. More is yet to come. Stay tuned.
The Business Snapshot on 88.5 Sun FM.
Time is power. Our lives